Good afternoon. This is Fred LaFranc from Results for Strategy with the next video in our ongoing series, Surviving the Pandemic. Today we have a very, very important topic to share with you, and that's the CARES Act and all the other government relief programs that are becoming available to many, many companies. As we know, the restaurant industry has been devastated, probably worse than any other industry besides cruise lines and hotels, and there's a possibility that many restaurants will not reopen. However, with some government support, there could be a possibility of being able to recover some of the losses that we've had and continue in business. And joining me today is Jessica Cates. I'm going to have her introduce herself briefly, and then we're going to get right into it and talk about the CARES Act and the implications it has for you. So Jessica, welcome and thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Fred. My name is Jessica Cates, and I am a finance strategist with Results Through Strategy. My background is mostly private equity, and I've been a private equity investor focused on the restaurant sector. And I also spent 8 years of my career as a CFO and CEO.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. So as we've done some investigation into the CARES Act, one of the things we noticed is that a lot of law firms are out there charging like a $10,000 a month retainer just to process this for companies. And maybe for a very large company, that's very affordable. But I'd say with more of the small to medium-sized business, that really isn't. And I think one of the things that Jessica has agreed to do is to evaluate a situation for a company with a free 15-minute consultation, provide possibly 1 hour of paid assessment time to really understand what's going on, and then give you an indication what the cost would be at a lot lower rate than $10,000 an hour or per month, excuse me. So let's get into this a little bit. So Jessica, let's talk about the CARES Act. It's been passed a couple, last week. However, day by day, there seems to be changes. So let's start with the components that are in the CARES Act. Then we can talk about some of the things that have occurred to get people up to speed, because this is bureaucratic and there's going to be a rush to the gates, and we're here to help people do something with it. So let's start with PPP. What is that, and what does it help people do?
So the PPP is the primary component of the CARES Act that's most relevant to our clients. It stands for the Paycheck Protection Program. And essentially, it allows businesses who have under 500 employees, and for restaurants, that's a metric per location, to get a loan of up to 2.5 times their average monthly payroll, gross payroll. So it includes benefits and payroll taxes. And they could take this as a loan and use it for 8 weeks following the date of loan origination. And the loan will be 100% forgiven if 75% of the proceeds are spent on payroll. So it's an incentive to small businesses to retain their employees and continue to pay them as they've been doing prior to this natural disaster.
Wow, so per location, 500 employees per location, and it's 80% of it's forgiven if 75% of the funds are used to fund payroll.
That's right.
That's fantastic. So, that's great.
For most companies, it will end up being a grant that they can use to fund their payroll. The other 25% is used to pay rent, utilities, and interest payments on any mortgage.
Fantastic. All right. So there's another component to the CARES Act, and we got a lot of new acronyms in our world. So the next one is the EIDL. So what is that all about?
Yes. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan is another offering under the CARES Act that allows businesses to get a loan up to a cap of $2 million, and the rate is 3.75% for a period of 2 years. The deferment for this, I believe the payments are deferred for at least 6 months from the date that you get the loan. And the purpose of the EIDL is to cover other expenses not covered by the PPP, so mostly working capital, accounts payable, payments to vendors, short-term debt like credit card payments.
Or even the opportunity to reopen your business when it's time.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now, we know that filling out a form sounds easy, but there's a lot of information that has to be gathered in order to be able to fill out the form. So what's the services and process that you're offering clients in order to accomplish this?
So the first thing I would do with clients is make sure that they are eligible for these two loans under the CARES Act. I would immediately help them apply for the $10,000 grant under the EIDL. So that's something that should be applied for immediately, and you could get that within a week. And then we would discuss what their eligibility is under both of these loan programs based on what part will be forgiven under the PPP versus what part may not be forgiven under the EIDL, determine their cash flow needs and how much liquidity cushion they need, because you could take out as much capital, of course, as you want. And if you don't use it, you'd pay it back. It's always nice to have a cushion. So we would make sure that they know how much they need, how much they're going to be able to pay back, how long it will last them for, and put together a liquidity analysis to get them through this period.
Okay, so your analysis is not just going to gather the information necessary to understand what they can ask for, but also the application of it, the payback, the terms, so they understand this going forward.
That's right. So the applications are pretty cumbersome. A lot of people even just have trouble finding where they are on the web. So I would take ownership of that process. I would help them fill out the application. I would manage the entire process for them from beginning to end and make sure that they have everything accounted for, because especially for the PPP at the end of the 8-week program, they're going to be audited for what they've been spending the money on. And that's something that requires a lot of minutia and a lot of just making sure that you're paying attention and accounting for things correctly. So that's something that I will help the companies do.
Yeah, well, I know that in these times with the CEOs and the owners that I've talked to, they're just going crazy trying to figure out how to keep the business alive. So spending time on forums like this is mind-numbing to them. They're not in a frame of mind to try and do that. And I know that you've spent hours upon hours studying this and researching it to make sure that you're prepared to really support people. The other thing that we've gotten some requests on, and Jessica's also agreed to do this, is to function as a fractional CFO. So if you need some financial support and some real firepower, but maybe furloughed your CFO or don't have the capital to do that right now, Jessica's agreed to do that for people at a modest amount to try and help you through this challenge as we're going through this, because it's not just about filling out forms and getting money, it's ongoing support. So Jessica, I really appreciate you doing that. Is there anything you want to comment on that regarding how you would help work with an owner or a CEO as a fractional CFO?
Sure. I think the most important thing right now is to explore all the financing alternatives available. And so, as I mentioned before, I would look under the CARES Act and see what's available. There have also been some amendments on the tax side, so looking at additional ways to generate cash flow through new tax deductions and tax deferrals. The other thing is, since I have a private equity background, and if, ideally and hopefully these companies will come out of this okay, that I will be able to position the company at the end of the day for future financing alternatives, maybe through family offices or private equity firms. So really from A to Z, making sure that they have all the financing that they can and are able to get, and then making sure it lasts them for as long as they need.
That's great. And of course, as a fractional CFO, I assume that includes dealing with vendors, dealing with any debts, payroll taxes, state taxes, insurance, and so forth and so on. Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, again, to the people who are viewing this video, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you find this to be reassurance that there's more support on the way. We're going to continue our video series. Our next topic that we'll be releasing next week is on working with franchisees as a franchisor. If you're a franchisee yourself, working with a franchisor, because there's a lot of issues in that world as well. So thank you for joining us. Be safe, stay well, laugh often. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Fred.